Feels like there's these battlegrounds. I feel like it's going to get kind of ugly. The prior auth war between insurance and physicians, it's kind of going to be like whose AI is stronger wins out, which I don't know, feels kind of dystopian. We're accelerating to it pretty quickly.
What's going to happen next is once this set of AI agents find their way out there, we got to start stitching the workflow up. That is an orchestration or an integration of all of these AI agents where the handoffs happen. And then the entire process, what goes on manually today, will be automated.
In terms of augmentation versus assistance versus replacement, we have the spectrum, right? So right now we are okay with augmentation and assistance. When will it be okay with replacement? I don't know the answer there, but I think technology is only going to get better.
So what are the implications if AI becomes the new battleground between insurance companies and physicians?
One fascinating angle is that SpaceX is being valued as a vertically integrated infrastructure company, not just a rocket builder. For GI, the implication is that future value will hinge on owning the entire digestive health ecosystem, before, during, and after procedures. GI practices could learn from this. Build the full stack of patient engagement, data, and care, not just procedures.
Welcome back to the Scope Forward show. I'm back with my friends and co-hosts, Matt Schwartz, the founder of Virgo, and Dr. Neil Parikh, gastroenterologist, Chief Innovation Officer at Connecticut GI and GI Alliance. Hi, Matt and Neil. Welcome back.
Hey, Praveen. Good to see you again.
Hey, Praveen.
Yeah, so I missed these chats that we have riffing off on the AI updates. So I think we're doing it after maybe a couple of months. We did interviews the last two times. So I'm really looking forward to this. And there are a lot of updates. First off is the whole SpaceX IPO that has happened. And when we last met, we didn't know, we knew, but it wasn't official that OpenAI and Anthropic were also going to file for IPO. All those are really new updates. But before we dig into all that, I want to ask, how have you been and what you've been up to?
Been good. I've been just busy with normal work, a little bit of travel, and spending too much time on Twitter. That's the most of it.
See, I think since we did the interview, Guru and Michael for Biome, what have I done? I gave a grand rounds on the microbiome and I made a big deal about processed cheese. That was fun. And then we did an experiment at home with shredded cheese versus block of cheese. Other than that, I have to apologize to our listeners or viewers. I'm off camera because I'm in transit, stuck in traffic here. I'm not driving, so it's okay.
Glad you could still make it.
I think it's important for everyone to know that we do have regular lives and we still try to show up and do this anyways because we're just
It's true.
crazy.
True.
I'm going to start with the Scope Forward newsletter. So there are plenty of interesting headlines. So one is NVIDIA has a complete healthcare angle from robotics to AI agents to drug discovery and all of that. I think it's important for us to be aware of that. There's one on AI being used for prognosis, and it's an AI model that uses routine blood tests to predict colorectal cancer survival. I want to know what Neil thinks about that. There's one from New York Times where the headline is very, very interesting. The doctors thought it was asthma, but AI flagged as a serious heart condition. So it's able to see data from electrocardiograms, and humans can miss it, but AI won't. That is, once again, very, very interesting. Open evidence challenged a study that Nature put out there that found that the frontier LLM models, it basically said that it's not as valid, and open evidence challenged what Nature put out there, the study's methodology, and it triggered a major public debate. And then we can talk about that. Agentic AI, Assort Health, raised $120 million at a valuation of 1.2 billion. Healthcare services, I saw in the NVIDIA article, has 3 times AI adoption than any other space. So that is very, very interesting. And it's not surprising too when I look at the United Healthcare's AI investment. So the number is anything to do with insurance companies is very, very big. So the number here is $3 billion. So United Health Group is investing $3 billion in AI, and soon bots will be calling doctors. So I'm very curious to see whether Neil is looking forward to answering that call. And then we have Midjourney. Matt, you've had exchanges with the CEO of Midjourney, and want to know about that. But let's start with SpaceX. What's your take? SpaceX has IPO'd, biggest IPO in history, and Becker's ran an article saying that they, at least in their prospectus, there is a mention of healthcare. But what do you think, Matt?
Well, the first thought is I forgot to buy in on IPO day and take part in the run up. That was pretty incredible. But the other thing that came to mind was shortly after SpaceX went public, the announcement came out that they were officially acquiring Cursor, which is an amazing software platform, agentic coding that I really like. And they acquired it, I think, for $60 billion in stock. It was paid for with SpaceX stock. And so SpaceX, I think, initially got it at a pretty good deal because the stock price had gone up so much.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's something about now the stock price has cooled off a little bit, so I think that valuation got a little bit less crazy, but it is an amazing outcome for the company Cursor, and it's a great product. But just shows what SpaceX is going to be capable of now that they've got XAI folded into it and Cursor folded into it. It seems like their ambitions are pretty sprawling beyond just Starship going to Mars, but putting data centers in space also.
So it's really not a space company.
Space, XAI, coding, yeah, data centers, everything.
Yeah, and there is a talk of Tesla being rolled into SpaceX, or who knows, the other way around. I think it's going to be the first. But if those two companies merge, so then you have a whole bunch of
robotics.
Yeah. Neil, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a fascinating macro level thought experiment, right? I mean, just pure size of how much money or capital is there, or they call it market cap. SpaceX could basically buy or experiment with any industry, including healthcare. I mean, my initial thought wasn't to link SpaceX IPO to GI. It was more like Matt's thought, where why was I not smarter and realized I should get into this first? But I will say that, if we bridge the concept to GI, it's not that SpaceX necessarily buying us, but it's rather like deep tech, robotics, AI frameworks, things that we've talked about on this show. How are they going to rewrite the standard operating model or operating system of GI or medicine, right? It's like the whole ecosystem is going to change with these kind of players. And that was my more take-home message.
I want to do a little experiment here. So I have a long-running project in my ChatGPT called AI and GI, and it has all kinds of things fed into it. I want us to chat with my AI on the implications for gastroenterology. I just did a little thing, just before, which is interesting, but I'm curious to know what it's going to say. Hi, ChatGPT.
Hey there. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, so you're actually live on the Scope Forward show. We're doing a recording and we're going through various headlines and riffing off. I'm with Matt Schwartz, who is the founder of Virgo. And then I have Dr. Neil Parikh, who is Chief Innovation Officer, gastroenterologist, Connecticut GI. We were talking about the SpaceX IPO, and I put in a line earlier, but I'm curious to know what could be the implications for gastroenterology.
One fascinating angle is that SpaceX is being valued as a vertically integrated infrastructure company, not just a rocket builder. For GI, the implication is that future value will hinge on owning the entire digestive health ecosystem before, during, and after procedures. GI practices could learn from this. Build the full stack of patient engagement, data, and care, not just procedures.
Nice. We just want to do another thought experiment. Always, the startup community or the venture capital community values gastroenterology at $136 billion. That's the number that's thrown around. Matt, is that correct?
Yeah, I've heard that's like the rough spend for GI care. Exactly know how accurate it is, but it sounds about right.
Okay. So, and then here's SpaceX turning Elon Musk into a world's first trillionaire. So just the thought experiment is, if SpaceX like literally wanted to buy gastroenterology as an industry, it could. What would happen in that case?
If a SpaceX level giant took over GI, it would likely accelerate a tech driven transformation. We'd see heavy investment in AI, automation of diagnostics, and a focus on creating end to end infrastructure, basically turning GI into a streamlined data powered ecosystem.
Praveen, could I ask,
Go ahead.
like, say SpaceX wanted to buy like a fully integrated GI capability. So if they wanted to buy, it's like Olympus, Pentax, and Fujifilm, and some endo center management company and like a bunch of endo centers and physician practice to cover like 25% of the country. What's the market cap of those combined entities? And could SpaceX theoretically pull it off?
The combined market cap would likely be in the low tens of billions. Olympus, for example, hovers around 20 billion. Add a large endocenter group and practices, perhaps you approach 30 to 40 billion total. SpaceX post IPO is valued around 150 plus billion, so yes, theoretically, they could pull it off. But the real question is, would they see the strategic fit in owning GI?
I think the number you quoted there for SpaceX's market cap, I think was a little off. I think last I saw it was like over 2 trillion. And so to put that in perspective, they just bought Cursor for 60 billion. So it's seems like at least in the ballpark of what SpaceX is able to cut a deal for.
That's a great perspective. With that scale, the financial capability is there, but it's the alignment of missions that would matter. If they saw GI as a key domain, say integrating health infrastructure with AI or biotech, they could absolutely reshape the field.
Neil, do you have any questions for my AI?
Yeah, I mean, I like that me and AI both use the same buzzwords. We use ecosystem a few times, vertical integration, end to end. So I'm in agreement with ChatGPT that interests lined up. I don't question the ability of SpaceX to buy anything if they found strategic fit in that model. I do like the idea that ChatGPT earlier suggested that it should be end to end, like own the whole pathway. Something I've been saying for a while, own the whole GI pathway.
It sounds like we're all on the same wavelength here. If we think big, whether it's SpaceX or GI, we're talking about owning the entire continuum, and that's where the future value is.
So is the future value, I think I'm going to say something very obvious. Is the future value really going to be about procedures? Going to building surgery centers, who are doing procedures morning till night, and then going and entering data in your EHR at night. Is that going to be the future? And what do you think?
The future value won't be just in churning out procedures. It's about leveraging data, predictive care, continuous patient engagement, and AI-driven personalization. The real transformation will come when GI integrates preventive models, digital therapeutics, and patient pathways. So it's not just about the procedure, but the whole ecosystem of digestive health.
Okay, one final question, and maybe Matt, I think this will trigger some thoughts for you as well. So if you think of the SpaceX IPO, OpenAI is going to go IPO soon, and Anthropic is also going to IPO soon. We've never seen this degree of investment being raised for a single technology, if you want to call it as a technology. It's more of an intelligence. So what would be the implications of this quantum of money coming into AI? What would be the implications for gastroenterology and healthcare?
An expert in AI adoption in healthcare and an expert in healthcare business models will be assisting us with collaboration, critique, and detailed advice. The AI expert will note that this unprecedented capital influx will accelerate the development of AI-powered clinical decision support, real-time diagnostics, and predictive analytics, reshaping how care is delivered. The business expert will point out that GI and healthcare practices will need to evolve their economic models, shifting from procedure-driven revenue to AI-driven value-based care, offering proactive health management at scale. In short, it's a transformation of both clinical capabilities and business models. Confidence 93%.
So what's your response?
I
In
my oh, is that to me, Praveen, or is that to
No,
ChatGPT?
no, it did what I usually do. It takes a couple of experts for every question I ask. I wanted to take a couple of experts, so that's what it's done. So,
Cool.
so let me first ask ChatGPT. So, ChatGPT, what is your response?
My response is that this level of investment will fundamentally rewire GI and healthcare. AI will become the backbone, predicting disease, optimizing interventions, and personalizing patient journeys. For GI, this means less reliance on reactive procedures and more focus on proactive continuous care. In short, GI practices will shift from episodic to integrated data-driven ecosystems.
Matt.
That last little bit is definitely my feeling. I think the data generated in not just GI care, but across healthcare can be very, very interesting. And the traditional healthcare ecosystem is, I think, undervalued the data that's generated. Oftentimes it doesn't even get captured. And with these companies IPOing and the market responding as it is, I think their market cap gives them this incredible ability to deploy capital for M&A. And like it's not now all of a sudden it's not just going to be SpaceX that can throw around its equity to acquire assets, but if OpenAI and Anthropic can do the same, I mean, we know that those companies have very clear healthcare ambitions that they're already acting on, and they're incredibly hungry for new data sources that they can't get their hands on. And it would not shock me to see them make these acquisitions that 6 months ago or a year ago would seem absolutely insane from a valuation perspective, but they may just be willing to overpay to get their hands on the data asset if they think it's valuable enough.
Yeah, and I at least know of one company that owns the world's largest endoscopy data, and the founder
I'm
is right
biased.
in front of me. Yes, so all right. No, awesome. I agree. Let's switch gears to the United Healthcare bit. Neil, what do you think? Like, look at the amount of money, $3 billion. The insurance company is pushing towards AI to have bots called doctors.
Neil, have you been called by a bot yet? Do you know?
I, I'm not aware that I've been called by a bot yet. No.
And here's another one, like, so AI and prior authorization, and it's the new gatekeeper. So let's take a moment to riff on this, right? Like, so what are the implications if AI becomes the new battleground between insurance companies and physicians?
That's what we predict it's going to happen, right? I think that's already happening to some degree. There are a lot of companies out there that are using AI for medication prior authorizations already in the GI space. And so that's already there. And insurance companies are using AI algorithms to also figure out what can or cannot work. So I think that's already in existence. Now, when I still call for a peer-to-peer, I'm still speaking to another human medical professional. That will likely change at some point as well. I fully envision that happening. Now, will I respond by having my authentic avatar call on my behalf that's already linked to the EMR and has the patient data? That's where, like, it's kind of funny, but, like, I think physicians are really held to a different standard. So can insurance companies be held to different positions? I don't know the answer. But I can see, I mean, again, with you both be easily create an agentic solution for me where it could look at my EMR, know what my angle is, and go back and forth peer to peer.
Since you touched on it, let's jump to the other update too, right? Which is I saw this PR. I think this is just from yesterday. This is an agentic AI company called Assort Health. They raised $120 million, Series C, valuation $1.2 billion from, again, Menlo Ventures, which is an investor in Anthropic. I found this quote interesting. This is from a partner at Menlo. After investing in Anthropic, our thesis was simple: find the best application layer companies in every category. The value of Assort's platform compounds with every patient interaction. Each one surfaces a new edge case and a new way to improve care, and the platform gets better for the next patient automatically. So, Neil, what can you share about what's going on in gastroenterology as far as agentic AI is concerned? I can do the same. This is the game that I'm playing right now.
Yeah, I mean, Praveen, we've talked about this in other contexts as well. I mean, I think this is the holy grail right now. And I mean, there are multiple pain points that I believe in GI and in healthcare in general that could be solved by an agentic solution. Okay. Most of us are afraid to make them patient facing right away, but I think that's going to be the future frontier. I think the frontier right now, and there's multiple vendors that can offer this right now, are more back office, prior authorization, scheduling, agentic solutions. The next step will be patient facing.
What's going to eventually happen?
I think eventually one of two things will happen. One, the EMR will be the gatekeeper as to which AI solution will win, or you'll have a fully, what they like to call, I think they start using AI native operating system that allows any vendor to plug and play. I think which one wins, it depends on where you practice and who you partner with.
Matt, your take on what you see?
Yeah. I don't know. It feels like there's these battlegrounds. I feel like it's going to get kind of ugly. The prior auth war between insurance and physicians, it's kind of going to be like whose AI is stronger wins out, which I don't know, feels kind of dystopian. And then I think same thing on the patient side. You're going to have healthcare developing agents to interface with patients and do intake and questionnaires and all sorts of things. And then thinking about it from the patient side, like, do I really want to be talking to the bot for Kaiser? Not really. So can I just get my own agent to do that on my behalf? It's like, is anyone even doing anything on their own anymore? It feels a little bit weird, and we're accelerating to it pretty quickly.
Yeah, Praveen, it makes me think of that earlier episode where we had, what was that, AI agent community where they were talking to each other. I mean, that's
right.
really
Yeah,
exactly. That's what Matt's describing. Eventually you just have AI talk to AI. I'm not sure what humans will be doing at that time. I don't know. That's interesting.
Coming up on the Scope Forward show, Matt's AI talks to Praveen's AI.
Right.
AI.
Yeah.
And the audience is a bunch of bots listening to us.
I mean, we basically just had ChatGPT run the interview for us anyway right now, so it's not that different.
My take and what I know of what's happening is if you look at the GI workflow and break it down into front office, clinical operations or care coordination, back office, all the other stuff. So each of those pieces, there are AI solutions already existing or coming up. For example, front office inbound AI call center receiving calls from patients. There are automations to do or AI to do prior auths or benefits and verification or generating appeal letters. Or there is stuff doing outbound recalls, following up on colonoscopy. All this stuff is happening today. What's going to happen next is once this set of AI agents find their way out there, we got to start stitching the workflow up. That is an orchestration or an integration of all of these AI agents where the handoffs happen, and then the entire process, what goes on manually today, will be automated. Like, so I see that happening definitely, like, very quickly. If we lay that foundation, then that opens doors for doing clinical AI stuff, like more systematically. And that would be, what if GI care were to be run by bots, or to what extent it can be done, like in terms of triaging, in terms of the first interactions with the patients, and if you go in that direction. So, Neil, what are your comments on that? Like, where will all this go? And when it gets into AI, like really assisting the gastroenterologist, taking over large portions of what you do, what would that look like?
I think what you need is like you said, orchestration, right? Like an operating system, right? You want an operating system that basically syncs up all the different AI solutions and one seamless one. Not only do we want that for us as the, I guess, consumer or physician or endoscopist, we want that for our patient too, right? So if you're a patient right now, you don't want, I mean, I already don't like it when I get 15 text reminders for an appointment. Now imagine you have 5 different AI solutions, all give you different messages. You want it all come from one place, ideally some place that is synced up with your doctor's office, right? That's where we are right now. And I think an operating system that can do that will be successful. In terms of augmentation versus assistance versus replacement, you have the spectrum, right? So right now we are okay with augmentation and assistance. When will we be okay with replacement? And I think it's all, technology is only going to get better. Everything just gets better, right? That's how life evolves. So I don't know the answer there, but I think in terms of what we need right now, we, the patient, we, the clinician, want a single operating system that does all the AI connections for us. And there are vendors now starting to create that concept.
Matt, any comments?
No, it's I mean it is just interesting how much funding and attention this is driven, even just to these administrative layers of healthcare. It's like the activity of healthcare drives so much value in the economy that it is the obvious place that everyone is attacking. Because even if you solve a small problem, there's a huge market for it.
So, Neil, going back to your comments, right? Like, so what do you think of this? So, this is from New York Times. And so the doctors think of it as something, and the AI thinks of it as completely something else. Like, so in this case, AI flagged it as a serious heart problem based on the data that it read from electrocardiograms, and the doctors thought it was asthma. What do you have to say, and can you contextualize something like this for gastroenterology?
Yeah, so I don't know the specific reference or article, but you see a lot of these, right? These are all really catchy headlines where you can say AI did something that the professional did it or couldn't do or missed, right? And obviously, I think there are examples where AI can replace some of the critical thinking of any professional, including a physician or and making a diagnosis. The challenge really, and I've been a gastroenterologist for 11 years now after training. The challenge is not always making the diagnosis. It's working with the patient to figure out from diagnosis what treatment plan works best and what treatment plan will be most adherent to. And I think, and again, I think artificial intelligence can get there, but I do believe you'll need human in the loop for that overall full circle moment, at least in the next, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 years. 30 years from now, if that's the only choice we have, then yeah, maybe that's what we'll go with. We'll go into, you see those full, what do they call the boxes you can walk into in the mall or the airport, and they do all the analysis for you. They get your blood pressure, your heart rate, they scan you, and they spit out a diagnosis and treatment plan. Right now, that looks at televisit, right? So you have a visit with the provider. Do you have to have that? I think right now that's a comfort for us, right? We want that. Do we need that? Maybe not in the future.
I don't know if you saw this. I was trying to pull this up. China has these AI kiosks already. I've been seeing videos of it. You know, the kiosk does most of the diagnosis, and they've put this in rural areas and all of that. Like, so let me see if I can find an
Looks
article.
good. You get your Snickers bar, and then you get your blood glucose
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like in the malls. Yeah, here, look at this one. China installs 2,200 AI medical booths, delivers diagnosis in 4 minutes, claims 95% accuracy, and compares symptoms with 300 million cases.
That's amazing. It definitely, I mean, it ties to the Midjourney story, which I know we're going to talk about also. I didn't fully dive into that New York Times article, but I was seeing some things that I think a lot of physicians were commenting that the diagnosis was fairly obvious in the data and like would certainly be possible for a physician to make. You just, if you see it or do the extra workup. And I think that's where the AI piece is interesting. We're going to start pouring over data that's been sitting there latent in all sorts of interesting ways. And with the Midjourney piece, it also is raising, you know, like what happens if we're screening these patients for things that otherwise we wouldn't have been screening in the past? Are we going to find all sorts of incidental findings? And part of, I think, what's going to have to happen is we're going to need to come up with new treatment protocols for all sorts of things. Where in the past, like the treatment protocols and the way we handle things from the healthcare system was dependent on only screening or only looking for things in certain places. And it doesn't really make sense to apply those same decision-making processes if we're all of a sudden screening a totally different population in a totally different way.
Since you brought up Midjourney, Matt, let's jump to it. Give a background of what Midjourney was.
Yeah, Midjourney is an awesome company. I think before ChatGPT really took off, there was Stable Diffusion was the like big image generation breakthrough, where all of a sudden we're getting these pretty realistic images. Midjourney took that somewhat to the next level, and it's a very cool company started by a guy named David Holtz, who had a previously successful startup called Leap Motion. And he bootstrapped Midjourney, so has never raised any venture capital. And I've only used it a little bit. It's a product that you actually access through Discord, which is a chat app, kind of like Slack or Teams, and you actually like pay for it all through that app. And it started out as very high quality image generation, and they have a really specific emphasis on just tasteful, artistic images. And it's almost an addictive interface. Like you go in there and you're creating these very cool images. It's a great creative outlet. And they've built an amazing business out of it. The last I saw, they're doing $500 million in annual recurring revenue, extremely profitable, has never raised a dollar of outside funding. And so I think I saw it was about a year ago or a year and a half ago, the founder, David, was showing up in these interviews talking about like, be kind of cool. We're really successful here. If we could build up a medical imaging lab, basically. And then last week they have this announcement that was totally kept under wraps, where they're announcing Midjourney Medical. So Praveen, I don't know if you have any of the website to pull up. And this is like, I don't know, people are saying it's a pivot. I don't even think it's really a pivot. I think they truly just are making so much money that this is a new business that they think is interesting. And they presented this concept of a Midjourney scanner, which is, they're calling it, I think, ultrasonic computed tomography. So they're doing like a full 3D reconstruction, not quite whole body, but almost whole body scanning, where you stand on this platform and it lowers you into a tank of water that's surrounded by ultrasonic emitters and sensors. And then they try to reconstruct your 3D anatomy. Their plan is to deploy these in spas, and they're starting to build the first spa in San Francisco, where they want to have 10 of these scanners. And they're saying that like the scan is very quick. I think it takes maybe a few minutes right now, but they want to get it down to under a minute. And with that, they'll be able to like approach the volume of MRIs with just the single spa could do as many MRIs as are done in the entire US. The goal is to get people doing these scans much more regularly, more so than even people that are getting just kind of annual full body MRIs today. So yeah, that's the background context. I don't know, Praveen, anything I missed there along the way?
Oh, yeah. No, it's amazing. Before we go further, so Neil, what would be the implications of something like this in GI? What if this technology were to be available? It will be. If you're getting whole body ultrasound imaging, what can you do as a doctor?
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, I agree. I don't know much about this at all, except for Matt's post. And so I think it's a brilliant, I want to call it initial side hustle by this company, because if they have the extra capital, the place to put it right now is in longevity, wellness, and healthcare. And by doing this, by eventually putting these into spas, that's where people are leading towards, right? Especially in parts of the country, you have this huge push towards longevity medicine, a little more than just direct primary care. People want to know what can they do for themselves in 5 years as a patient, not what they can do for themselves now. And just getting a blood pressure, cholesterol, A1C read is not sufficient to our future consumer, our future patient. They think that's almost too late. They want to know what's going to happen in 5, 10 years from now. And these whole body scans or multi-cancer early detection testing, that's where this market is going to really, really explode. And I think it's brilliant on the part of Midjourney to venture here, because I can see quite a few clients they're going to have in terms of not only large wellness clinics, but also individual, consumers. So that's my initial take. I think that's really cool, very interesting, and there'll be a huge need for it, or a demand for it.
Well, they're going to deploy 50,000 scanners, they say, over the next 6 years. That means that translates to 1 billion full body scans every single month. And that world doesn't exist as of today. Matt, you had a bunch of things to say, and you said you had exchanges with Midjourney's CEO. So you posted on Twitter. So what's the point you're making?
So when the news of this first came out, it was kind of an interesting story arc on Twitter where the tech world was pretty effusive with praise. Just like, this is the coolest thing ever. We need more technology like this. We need more technologists that are deploying their own capital into healthcare and taking big swings. And then pretty quickly, the physician community on Twitter got very vocal with pushback that, one, ultrasound is never going to be a true MRI or CT replacement. And I think there are real physical limitations where ultrasound has trouble penetrating through bone and dealing with propagating through air, like in the bowels. And I think these are legitimate points. But then the bigger concern was, well, if we start scanning everybody every month, we're going to find these incidentalomas, and it's going to overwhelm the healthcare system, and people are going to get over biopsied and over treated, and we're actually going to cause net harm. And so there was this locking of the horns on Twitter between the tech community and the physician community. And so I had my what's now my most viral tweet ever, where I kind of feel like viewing this as a replacement for MRI or CT is missing the point. And what I actually view this as is a brand new imaging modality that is a great way to capture high dimensionality data. And what I mean by that is data that contains a lot of information, and it's variable from patient to patient, or even over a series of time. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of video data in general, and this ultimately can be captured as video data. And rather than looking at this as a new way to screen for cancers in the way that we're used to, so I wouldn't think of it as a replacement for getting a colonoscopy or getting a Cologuard. I look at it as just a new way to measure the human body. And what I like about this approach is that they're deploying it into a setting of a spa where they're going to get people that have disposable income and are interested enough to just pay for this data capture. And what I actually recommend is in the early days, they shouldn't even necessarily tell the patient that much about what it means. It's just interesting data. I think they're going to look at body composition early on and fine. It's like not that clinically relevant. But if you start doing this over millions of patients, eventually billions of patients or billions of data points, I think it's very rich data to mine for predictive signals about patient health that we're not even thinking about today. And that's the piece that gets me really excited. You know, if you get people just doing this regularly when they're young and healthy, can it start to detect when they're at risk of some change in their health? And it's funny because when I was starting Virgo, the other idea that I was thinking a lot about was, could you get an MRI that was, it might be low fidelity and low strength, but could you actually get some imaging modality that was easy enough to run that you could put it in your house? And the idea I always came back to is like, what's something you do basically every day? Take a shower. So could you actually build this imaging modality into your shower? And so when I saw this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly it. You're basically taking a bath while you're getting a scan of your body. And so the spa is great, but could you actually put this in someone's house? And there's Brian Johnson, who's got the Don't Die project and Project Blueprint. Like, he would probably pay to put one of these in his house and do it literally every day. And I just think we're going to start to get really interesting signals about health if we measure this sort of data much more regularly than just, going to see your doctor once a year or getting a colonoscopy every 10 years. So I thought it was really fascinating, and it spurred up some interesting conversation.
I want to ask a naive question to the doctor here. Would a whole body ultrasound reveal cancer?
Let me answer that in a two-part way. First, Matt's post really brings up a lot of traditionally how physicians have felt, and not because physicians are wrong in feeling that way. We are trained in science, right? We are trained to create guidelines based on rigorous work, learn guidelines, memorize those guidelines, and then make sure we follow those guidelines because the first principles do no harm. Okay? That's really why those guidelines are in place. Do no harm. So basically, do everything, but make sure you want to do better, you want to get the patient better, but you don't want to screw something up. Okay? And I think that's what drives us mostly. I will say that from a technological aspect, and I am, and technology, I mean like ultrasound versus MRI versus CT scan. I have multiple family members who are radiologists, and they'll probably have their own viewpoint on this, but so I don't know. Obviously, some tests are better than others. We already have that currently in place, but this is a whole new consumer, and I think we're missing that. And this is when I talk about all the time nowadays when I talk to non-healthcare consulting people who ask me to give my viewpoint. This is not your average consumer. This is not your patient who's going to see the primary care once a year. This is the consumer who wants to do everything they can right now to make sure 5 years from now they are better than they are today. Okay? That's the whole paradigm has shifted. And I think that's why you're seeing, and it's like what Matt just said, Jason is going to be the person who is looking for that and is new data. So I 100% agree. Early on, this new data will be challenging for us. It'll be challenging for the medical community, challenging for everybody. But if we use AI correctly and we harvest this data properly, I can't imagine it taking longer than 6 months, 12 months to create algorithms based on this initial data to then come up with guidelines that make sense, right? And
to me, yes. I mean, I don't know if I'd consider myself a guinea pig if I'm in the spa the first day and I get my body analyzed. Yeah, I mean, that's like being a research subject. I used to get paid $50 to play a video game in an MRI machine in college, $50. And it was like a 1.5 hour MRI, and I was getting loud noises, right? I'm not saying that was correct, good or bad. It may explain a lot where I am right now, but To me, this isn't that different. And the other paradigm, the other analogy that I brought up earlier is that multi-cancer earlier detection testing, right? Which are these blood panels, or Viome had the saliva panels to give information more than we currently have. All right. Yes, are they perfect? No, they're not perfect right now. But is 65%, 70% better than 0%? Okay. If I have no way of predicting pancreatic cancer right now, and I can give you a blood test to predict 40%, is that cost effective for the country? Maybe not. Is it expensive for the country? Sure, but that's not the question you're asking me. If you're asking me, will this give me data that will potentially help me in the future find an illness, prevent an illness, then the answer is yes. And so to go back to your question, Praveen, yeah, I mean, can ultrasound detect cancer? Sure. Is it the best test? Potentially, potentially not. Will it get better? It likely will. Is it better than nothing? Yes.
Just like we were talking about orchestration with respect to AI agents in the back office, front office, and all of that, the same kind of orchestration needs to happen with all of these data sources in medicine. Neil, look at this article, right? So this is based on blood tests. So if you combine blood tests with AI, then you can come up with colorectal cancer prognosis. Now, this is very, very interesting. So you combine this data, and then the last time when we met with the microbiome folks from Viome, you get that data, you get the endoscopy data, and then you have all of this a whole body ultrasound data. When Matt was speaking, I was just thinking, again, a slight tangent to what I want to frame. If you think of antibiotics, it was rich people medicine 50 years ago. Only the very few could afford it. Now everybody affords it. Now we are getting to the point that don't give me, like if you're rich, you would say, don't give me antibiotics. So I want to take a wellness approach to healing this condition. Unless it is absolutely necessary, I don't want to go there. So that's where we have come. So right now it may be, all the people who can afford this, and it's the Brian Johnsons of the world who potentially do this every day. Matt, when you were saying that, that's what I was thinking. What if you do this every single day and that data becomes available, and then you have algorithms reading through this, plus you have the microbiome data, plus you have stool data, and plus you have all the blood tests. So you have all of this, and there are AI layers or orchestration layers that are architected on top of this. And then there is Neil. The patient comes to Neil. So Neil, what would happen? What would we do in such a world? Because I don't think, I heard you say 30 years and all, but I don't think we are that far out. Because this is more than doubling right now. People miss the exponential rate of change that's happening. So we'll see another 8 doublings before the end of the decade. By 2029, it looks like AGI will be a reality. Before 2035, if all our homes will have humanoid robots running around. Your surgery centers will be full of humanoid robots assisting you. The agentic AI stuff will all be done. So we're talking of that kind of a world. It's not really too far out.
When you talk about all that, and then Neil, you mentioned the guidelines that are developed in medicine, and I think it's incredibly admirable the way that science has been executed in medicine to create these guidelines and to do it using rigorous studies. But a major area that I think, especially the U.S. healthcare system, could stand to evolve is get much more aggressive with updating these guidelines and running studies and kind of forcing much more randomization in healthcare so that we can evolve the guidelines faster and figure out how do we incorporate all these new data streams and incorporate AI. And when it comes to colorectal cancer, we also need to take into account that the treatments for colorectal cancer are also getting better and are evolving. So is the disease itself as deadly? And all of this it's very, very complex. And the only way to really know if we're making the right decision is to run good experiments and see what's working and what's not. I was at an event last night associated with the conference called Bio. That's big biopharma conference here in San Diego. A lot of really interesting discussion, and someone mentioned that in one of the Middle Eastern kingdom states, because the government pays for everybody's healthcare and pays for everything, people just make money from the oil wealth. They basically force enrollment into clinical trials, and they can execute very large clinical trials because everyone's healthcare is managed through the same app and through the government healthcare system. And so when they have a question about, should we be prescribing drug A versus drug B, they just turn on a study and they randomize everyone and they answer the question basically instantly. And that obviously is very hard to pull off here in the US, but I do think in the US, maybe the way to do it is through technology and creating those sorts of opportunities. And if you can run a study like that, you can just enhance knowledge so much faster.
It's so amazing.
Matt, actually, sorry, Praveen, I think Matt, both these Stu Ackerman and Mike Satch have actually recently used AI, because this is another whole field. And they basically, do we need to spend all the years doing literature-based studies, or can we generate studies faster using AI? And they basically designed a study, executed a study, and produced results, I think within a few days, if I remember correctly. So a lot of you're absolutely right. I mean, what we've done before does not need to be the way we're doing going forward. And again, I'm very, very bullish that this is going to drive a shift in terms of how physicians practice. Because again, this is what our patients, who are our consumers, are going to want. They're going to want the future analysis. And really, the article that you showed there, to me, that's where precision medicine should be, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's basically taking data, personalized data, and using AI to interpret it at a faster level, and then giving me a synthesis. Right? I forget the name of the company. There's some company that I had spoken to a few months ago that was going to basically synthesize all the patient's data and send me a quick whatever blurb before the patient walks in. That's just before, right? That's just history taking. That's one aspect. But eventually you just have everything done, all the data put together, microbiome, stool, endoscopic imaging, everything you have in the patient, and you forecast.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Neil, in such a world, what would Dr. Parikh do?
I mean, I think it would make a lot of my job very rewarding, right? I would take a lot of the data synthesis that I do currently out of my hands, right? A lot of what I do is collecting data from a variety of sources, and then I try to put it together and try to make sense of it for the patient. In this world, a lot of that would be already geared towards me, telling me, hey, this is what's going to work probably best for the patient. So then I would just be having the conversation with the patient. This is what is predicted to be the best case scenario for you. These are the downsides of that best case scenario. This is what, based on my experience, has worked for people like you. What do you want to do? And then going forward, it would be really, okay, give me an update in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, what's worked, what's not worked.
I want to wrap up with a final discussion on this whole open evidence versus Nature dispute. So what happened, the backstory is Nature published this study that the general purpose large language models outperformed specialized clinical tools such as open evidence. And then open evidence didn't push back in a formal way, but they pushed back through social media, which I thought was very, very interesting. And they have said the following, right? Like, so they said there's benchmark contamination and there's conflict of interest. The there's a call for retraction, and then there's rebuttal and all of that. Neil, I'm assuming you use open evidence every day.
Yes, I am using Docs GPT, or I think it's called Doximity Ask as well, to troubleshoot, just to get differing opinions. I like to use more than one thing. I wouldn't say every day, but I would say definitely in certain disease states more than other disease states. But I think that it's a great resource. It's what I used to use for UpToDate. I use now Open Evidence or Docs GPT.
Yeah, and I'm pulling up a LinkedIn post. So here he's talking about open evidence, UpToDate, and also Doximity. Now, do you think, what Nature cited, that the large language models are either better, they're actually better than open evidence? Do you feel that?
No, I don't. And I think the part of that gives me the reason I don't use LLMs at all for medical decision making is that I want the references or the peer review. So I still have faith in that. Can I envision a time where references won't be as valuable? Sure, but right now I want to be able to see where the actual article came from. I like to scroll down and see, okay, that was JAMA, that was New England Journal of Medicine, that was a Red Journal. I like seeing that because again, I was born into medicine in the field where rigorous studies mattered. Like I remember when I was a fellow, if it wasn't a randomized controlled trial, it was useless. So I think because we're built that way, for me, I need to see those references. I need to see the peer reviews. And that's the biggest distinction between open evidence, Docs, GPT, and more RAG-based models and the general LLMs.
Okay, I have Matt. Hold on 1 minute,
Okay.
because I have a question coming up for you, but I want to frame what's coming up. So you saw what Neil is saying, and but this is today, and all of these clinical tools are built on top of these foundational models, such as OpenAI, Gemini, Anthropic. And if you and these guys are raising money, so Anthropic is going to have a ton of money, a lot more money soon. OpenAI will do the same. And how difficult would it be and given, they even pulled off a model that could hack the Pentagon, or whatever, right? So Mythos, was it? Yeah. Yeah. So all that is going on. How difficult would it be a year from now, 2 years from now? I mean, I'm thinking a year actually, for them to launch their own version of open evidence. And I'll say it. What if open evidence shuts down tomorrow because the business model is no longer sustainable?
I don't know. I mean, so the Anthropic's latest model, Mythos or Fable, I mean, there's a whole drama that I don't think we even spoke about. It kind of happened so fast. That model was, I think, to Anthropic, was so scary good in anything related to biology that you actually couldn't ask it anything related to biology, or it would drop you down to the earlier model. I tried it in the short windows available. I tried asking it just very simple, explain high school biology concepts to me, and it was prevented from doing that. But I think the capabilities are going to be there. What I think is struck me as interesting about this whole saga between open evidence and Nature, it brings me back to the major journals. I think need to wake up here and do something when it comes to evaluating AI. There's something else I saw, that there was some publication in a major journal where there are these models being evaluated that are from a year ago or a year and a half ago, and they're just totally outdated at this point. Even this one, I think, was comparing to GPT 5.2, which is 0.3 revisions old at this point. And I know there's a replication crisis in science, but when it comes to AI, these are benchmarks that should be easily replicatable by anybody. It should be very easy to go in and see what is the performance in the benchmark, but more importantly, what is the benchmark actually doing? When they say there's benchmark contamination, this shouldn't be something behind closed doors that someone runs and then they submit it to Nature and there's a review process and only the reviewers of Nature are supposed to know what happened. I think it's just it's not going to be sustainable in the realm of AI where things move so quickly. And I think people will pretty quickly come to distrust, publications. Neil, when you say like knowing that this was a New England Journal paper or Nature paper, I'm concerned that trust is going to go away if they don't come up with a better way to review and disseminate specifically AI related information. It's like the timelines for peer review are not compatible with AI, and the way that information is presented, like you call it a paper, it can't be on paper. It's got to be software that you can actually interact
so
with.
true. It's so true. It's so true.
Go back and think about the white paper that I was part of, like, when we all began this conversation. It took a year.
Right.
And it was a respectable journal.
Right. And it takes a year to produce a text artifact. And when it comes to AI benchmarks, you can produce the score, but what you really need to produce is an artifact of benchmark that you can actually engage with as an individual and pressure test yourself. This is what, computer scientists do. And we know that the benchmark is not the end all be all of how a product works. There's different ways that benchmarks can get gamed, and the medical journals should really wake up to that if they want to keep publishing information related to AI benchmarks. They need, I think, a much sharper way to review and present the information.
Neil, your comments?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it is true. It's interesting. I do rely on the references right now, but I'm doing that because I'm looking for like the primary sources for a different drug that was studied and where was it studied and who published it. But that's now. That's in 2026. If we're using an LLM in 2028, will we even have articles that we need in 2028? I don't know the answer. I think, and I came up in that post with Stu as well, field is so rapidly evolving that you almost can't put a study together. And then what happens? That's mind-blowing to physicians, I think, because that's what we've always got out of, And Praveen, to your point with the white paper that you guys wrote on AI, that's why my joke, respectfully, was that it didn't give me anything, right? Because by the time that came out, you guys were probably dealing with stuff that was so much older, I remember I interviewed Mike Wallace, who's a huge AI guy person on my podcast, and we were talking about an article, and he was like, Neil, that article was 4 months ago. This is what I'm doing now. And it's true. Like, by the time you get something out there and peer reviewed in AI specifically, it's going to be old. It's going to be old by the time it's published.
I can't stop myself from asking, what are GI societies doing about this, Neil? You would know.
Stay tuned. I have an interesting conversation with Neil Stolman recently, and I asked him that. I was like, we need more. We need independent GI is going to need more guidance framework, because that's how we've been built, right? And yeah, we're seeking in different places, but we're going to need more benchmarks and framework. And so we have an interesting conversation coming up at some point, which maybe will shed some light. I don't know.
Just this morning for me, this is what I was thinking. I didn't tell you guys this, but a gastroenterologist told me after watching our last episode on the microbiome that he listened to it twice to learn. And I was just thinking, how come, the three of us are doing this with like Neil driving and Matt end of his day, me beginning of my day. They're doing this on the side and providing this education. Shouldn't it happen much more systematically? I can't stop myself from saying this. But yeah.
One thing I'd like to, just put into the ether for the journals or medical societies, There's an amazing framework for this that has really grown up in the computer science world. I think I mentioned it before. There's a website called Archive, ARXIV, and it's a preprint server. So when you come up with some new finding in computer science or mathematics or machine learning, you write up a manuscript and you kind of follow typical peer review structure for a paper, but you just put it out open access and people can actually provide feedback to you and there's revision history so everybody can see how it's evolved over time. And what's become pretty common in computer science is you put up a paper and you actually link it to a GitHub repository for the code base. And so that anyone can go in and they can download your code, they can run it themselves, they can inspect it. There is a version of this medicine called medRxiv that I think is still a little bit, I know it's in some ways related to journals, but I think there's room for anything related to AI to really follow the best practice from the field of AI, where you can't just publish a paper, you publish a paper with the code for people to actually run it themselves. I think would go a very long way.
Very, very interesting. Maybe that's what's needed. I know I said that was my last question, but Matt, something else came up. And if I don't ask you this now, the world is going to change by the next time we're going to meet. It could be even in a week. So you know this, right? We all know this. The US government suspended access to Fable 5 and Mythos 5 anthropic models. Now, as an entrepreneur, using these AI models, Matt, did you consider that you should probably, have a China AI also in your list of tools that you could play with because, that de-risks you? And here's an article that just came out 8 hours ago. This says that they've figured out, I saw one on The Economist as well. So it's advancing so fast and so quickly that AI companies in China could probably surpass the US AI companies and for a fraction of the cost or even maybe free. Who knows?
Yeah. I've sort of expected that something, well, I guess a part of me is a little bit glad that this has happened and, someone is really waking up to the real risks around this. I think the way it was done was maybe a little bit unfair and not that well thought out by the government, but it at least shows that this sort of restriction on AI is possible, where for a long time, people would just say AI is a freight train and there's no way to stop it. We couldn't stop it if we wanted to. And I think that's shown to be not the case. We're now going on almost 2 weeks that this has been off the market and the world has carried on. I did get a chance to use Fable 5 a little bit and it was impressively better than anything I'd used before. And so that piece of me misses it and thinks, what could we be building on top of that model right now? The other piece though is, before Fable 5 was released, Mythos was released, but only to a handful of top Fortune 50 companies got access to it initially. And I think we're maybe leaving the golden era of AI already, where it's always felt like every individual is going to have access to the smartest model available on the planet. And it's pretty clear to me that as intelligence capabilities grow and grow, there's going to be more of almost an auction style system where every token is going to go to the highest bidder. And if you're Lily, you can probably generate a token that is worth a lot more than the token that I'm going to generate from my couch when I'm just curious about some random subject. And so I would expect to see much more segmentation of the smartest, best world-class models going to the highest bidder, which is a little bit sad, I think. And I think probably goes against what a lot of people have been feeling where, it seems like the possibilities are going to be endless and you're all going to get access to free and limited intelligence. And so it's definitely causing some rethinking about, do we want to, attach all of our direction to a single model, or do we need to be able to switch models at the drop of a pin? I don't know what the right answer is. I mean, the Chinese models honestly kind of scare me also. I think it's very easy to inject almost like malware into an LLM that it would be very hard to detect. Is the LLM subtly introducing bugs or backdoors into my code? I don't actually know. There's definitely a principle in AI where if you don't own the weights of the model, you don't own anything. It's really, you've got to own the weights of the model and run it on your own infrastructure, which is just very difficult to do if you want to actually be at the frontier. So I don't know. I think it's a bit of a rude awakening for this idea that we're all going to be living in AI utopia where everyone's got access to the best model. I just don't think is going to be the case.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Great response. And yeah, there's no right answer, right? There's really no right answer. Like, so as an entrepreneur, do you get left behind? You have this feeling that, will I get left behind if I don't keep track of this and use this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that feeling when it comes to AI of being left behind across the board. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah. All right. Let's call it a night, call it a day. And final comments or takeaways. This is a lot of fun again. Neil?
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
no, Pareen, I mean, first of all, I'm still awake, which is better than usual. Usually I call up earlier. I may or may not still be stuck in traffic where I am, so I've been forced to, but no, it's always, so much to go through. I feel like the banter, the conversation, the back and forth it helps me think. You did say earlier, why are we at this hour doing this? Because I think it's our curiosity, right? I mean, I think, we want to see, can we figure out what the next step is going to be, and can we troubleshoot it ahead of time? Usually we can't, but it's good to learn.
AI feels like my soap opera personally. I don't know how healthy that is, but it's endlessly fascinating to follow the drama of AI. And then I love getting to chat with you guys about how it all ties together and relates back to healthcare. It's an awesome opportunity to just sort of synthesize across what's happening.
Yeah, and for me, I see it as an intelligence, less as a technology or a tool. And I see this as a canvas for me to play with. And like even the things that we're building and this conversation. So it helps me play with that canvas a little bit more. So just getting to know how this new intelligence is evolving and what does that even mean, to be human or stay human. I don't know, like my mind keeps going there. So, but great fun. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next time.
Looking forward to it already.
Thanks, Praveen.